some of the solutions are. And we're going to talk about crack tonight, really, and how drugs keep people stuck in crime, how kids get sucked up into it. It's my contention that a lot of us sit back, in our homes or in our cars watching the radio, and we read in the media sometimes sensational stories about, on the late night news, it's like gang activity or crack or whatever, and it's just another way to pump people up. And tonight we're not going to do any of that nonsense here, okay? We're going to have a conversation, a dialogue actually with you, with Reverend Leon Kelly and Captain Vince Demano of the Gang Task Force here in Denver. And really for the next hour this is going to be a conversation about what some of the problems are and what we as a community can do, what you can do, and the reality, I think, of the situation for a kid on the street. Somehow that gets missed. What the heck happens and why kids get on the street and take dope. 761-1550 is the talk number here this evening on Addiction Free Radio. 761-1550 if you have any questions for Captain Vince Demano or the Reverend Kelly. Gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to welcome you both to the program tonight. Thank you, Jan.
All right,
You're very welcome. Let's begin. This is really kind of fun. We had Channel 4 News they were here the other night, for God's sake. They were actually on the program. They did the homeless thing. Wendy Bergen was here, and then we had some people from Channel 4 News. So what the heck was all that about? Let's get that one right out of the way, because it upset our pre-show our pre-show talk, where we get to kind of sit around and chat. So Channel 4 News, if you're listening, don't mess with us anymmer.
Oh, don't be so mean, buddy.
No, I mean, this is not media. This is I just got to tell them.
You're kidding.
I'm kidding. I'm setting them straight too. But what's all that about? Why is the media dogging you?
Well, I wouldn't say that they're dogging me. On the contrary, they've been very supportive of the efforts that we've been trying to make. Certainly there has been a lot of criticism about the media exploiting the situation, but my stance on that is the fact that one of my greatest opposition from parents and others has been the denial, saying my son is not a gangbanger or my daughter is not affiliated with it. Why do you identify my son as fitting the profile of a gangbanger and all? And I had made a commitment.
Of a gangbanger? What are you talking about?
A gang, further a kid who's caught up in to the lifestyle of
Is that
gang.
what it's called, a gangbanger? You really? Whoa,
okay,
I didn't know that. Where am I from?
Yeah, where you from?
I'm from Boulder. We talk about a gangbang in Boulder. Held in a completely different context, I assure you.
I received a call from Boulder too.
No, a lot of people don't understand. See, they don't understand.
Well,
that's we don't,
There's a problem in seeing, even though that I know that this is a Christian-based radio station.
Absolutely.
And even focusing on that angle of it, there's a lot of church folks, a lot of saints, whose kids are getting caught up in this, but yet they continue to stay blinded or want to stay blinded to the fact that not my kid. It's easy to say, well, okay, I'm going to put it in the hands of the Lord and let Him deal with it.
Okay, I got a question for you. Could you tell us a little bit, maybe just quickly, like what your background is? Because you and I didn't even get a chance to talk. You're a reverend. You have a church in
I'm an assistant pastor at Maranatha Church of God in Christ, right? And I'm an ordained elder. That means I marry folks, I bury folks. But the main thing about all of them, just a child of God,
And your ministry's on the street with the kids?
On the street, I'm director of Open Door Youth Gang Ministries.
Are you a recovered addict yourself?
Well, I guess it could be defined as addict. I used to be a pretty good-sized dope dealer here in the city. Was up to around $600 a day in cocaine. Graduate from the University of Colorado. Was brought up and the church. Your dad was a minister, mom was a missionary. Was the type of kid that went to church 3, 4, 5 times a week, out of the course of a week.
So that's something people should know about you, that you've been through this. You have been on the street.
Well, certainly my background has been public knowledge, and if I could use my background as a inspiration for others who feel like they're so caught up in it that they can't get out, then, praise the Lord.
Okay, Captain Demano, or should I call you Vince, or should we call you Captain?
Just call me Vince, that's fine.
Okay. What, maybe I could just ask you a little bit, how did you get into this, the deal with the gang task force, and maybe you could give us just kind of an overview. What the heck? You know? How did you get into being in the gang task force, and what is it, anyways?
Okay, well, simply put, I was transferred into the gang unit. But to begin with, I started my association with the gang unit being a Denver police officer. I was assigned there in July of last year as a lieutenant. Then in December I was promoted to captain, and I assumed command of the gang task force as it now stands. When you say, you know, what's going on with the gangs, and like Reverend Leon saying, you know, he referred to, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, a lot of problems, a lot of things that need to be addressed, not only from the police department, from the community standpoint, from the religious standpoint. It's got to be a concerted effort. It can't be a one-pronged attack. It takes quite a few people involved in this. And I think these type of radio programs are the type of things that we need to have.
Yeah, thank you, because you know people should know that we were talking about this earlier. This particular program, Addiction Free Radio, this is not entertainment. Okay, this is not like Radio Land talk show entertainment, and this isn't. I don't even consider myself part of the news media. In fact, I don't like the news media. No, we're here for a couple of reasons. All right, we're here to create a dialogue in the community about drugs, about addiction, about dealing, about alcoholism, about adult children of alcoholics, abuse, and all the stuff that goes on with it. And if there are people that we can help out, that's why we have a number. 761-1550 is the talk number. 761-1550. So one thing I want you to know, too, as you listen, if you're in trouble tonight, in any form at all, especially in around, if it happens to be gang activity or somebody in your family is using drugs or alcohol, if we can help you out, give us a call here. I mean, we can do a whole bunch of things here tonight. We've got 2 experts in gangs. We have a law enforcement official here. We have a reverend with us. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of action.
Got it covered.
Yeah, we have it covered. And so yeah, that's why we're here. Now, what I want to ask you too about the media. Have you guys been are you being dogged by the media?
It's a real hot topic right now. Everybody wants to know about it. Everybody's concerned about how are we responding to the problem. What are the resources of Denver going to do concerning it? And you know, they've got a legitimate concern. They need to report that to the people, get people involved.
So what's the bottom line of the action on tonight? Let's just get it out of the way, and then we can move on into solutions. I mean, what?
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess, you know, from what I understand, that there has been I guess the mayor made a comment about what the city of Denver is looking to do as far as addressing the gang and the drug issue. And people, I guess some of the media were trying to get in contact with me to find out what my views on it, because I've been very sort of outspoken over the last few days as to being frustrated because certain things weren't being done, because they were maybe getting caught up in the red tapes, or procrastination was going forth from whatever department. But I'm quite sure Vince has been very knowledgeable of things that are going on the street. But and they've seen, of course, you've seen the escalation over the years. And it's easy for those of us who are out there in the streets dealing with the problem, you know, from the root up, to see the seriousness of this and how it's migrating into other communities. And for someone to sit up and just continue to say, well, we're going to review the problem, we're going to go over this, we're going to analyze this and that. And, you know, you tell this kid who's out there gang banging and using the crack and everything that, you know, I mean, he's probably going to continue. You know?
He doesn't really care about the politics. So, do you two guys get along, basically?
Matter of fact, you know, our works are very familiar, you know, and
I can remember being at several locations where Reverend Kelly has been at, and has been an aid not only to the gang bangers or to the police department too. So.
See, and that's what we were talking about, being able to network together.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of kids I deal with, they know I'm not a Crip, I'm not a Blood, they know I'm not a policeman. You know, and I continue to try to instill in them that some of my best friends are policemen. You know, and they're people too. But the thing about it, like, I pay my tax dollars for Vince to do his job, and I expect for him to do his job to the best of his ability. And I try to get the kids to understand that if you're not caught dirty, there's no need to be, you know, even afraid of tripping on the police around.
Let me ask you this, Vince. How many people do you have on your team in the gang task force?
Right now, the gang task force is, I believe, 85 people as a task force per se.
Now, these are cops? I mean, like dressed in uniform on motorcycles, or driving around, or undercover, or
well, we've got just by the mere term that it's a task force, it combines a bunch of units that, due to a major incident taking place, that the department, the mayor, the chief, all made the determination we had to address the problem right away before we allowed it to escalate any further, any type of retribution. So this task force as it now stands includes diverse organizations. We've got Metro SWAT, we've got the Mounted Horse Patrol, we've got the Tactical Motorcycle Unit.
What's the deal? What are the dynamics of the? How did the gangs? I mean, how did the gangs get here, and how did this all get started, and when did it get started?
Here in Denver, the origin of the Crips and Bloods.
Well, sure. Let's cover that right from Jump Street.
Okay, basically our information stems from Los Angeles, the authorities out there, and they tell us around 69 or 70 that small black gangs came together and they ended some of their differences to enjoy basically a sense of power and security found in numbers. The name Crip was finally chosen out there because there's a lot of theories about it. One of the major ones that I go along with is that Crips came from a popular film that was out at that time. What was it? Tales of the Crips.
Yeah, Tales of the Crips.
Right, that's it. That's the one. And so that was the title that it took. It Cript, and it became CRIPS.
Yeah.
Crips. This was an attempt, I think, to associate themselves with the tales of horror that were basically coming out of the film. Kind of getting that reputation, that type of idea.
Yeah, the terror.
Okay.
The fear that builds up in it.
Bloods?
The Bloods were formed, once this group became prominent, the Bloods were other smaller groups. Some of the names are Brim, Swans, Bounty Hunters. They were not aligned with the Crips and didn't want to associate with this type of violence that they were putting forth at that time. So ultimately what they ended up doing was forming their own group, banding together around, I think it was 73 or 74, and their common name were the Bloods. And
for what purpose?
God, why do people join gangs? Well,
I don't know. I mean, what's the difference between a gang and a social club?
Well, when you look at it, we identify gangs as those groups who bond together, who create get caught up into like some type of criminal activity. We also associate gangs like Bonnie and Clyde, Butch Cassidy, St. Louis Kids, something that is antisocial, anti-norm, with some type of criminal overtone.
What about skinheads? Do we have white skinheads in Denver?
Right, we have there are a lot of, the focus has been on the Crips and the Bloods.
Yeah.
But yet there are many other gangs, that are in existence in our city right here. And the Warlords have been around for a number of years. They've been dormant over the past number of years, but now they're showing some signs of resurfacing, showing their alignment.
The reason I mentioned the white skinheads is because that's what we see up on the Boulder Mall.
Yeah.
You don't see Crips and Bloods up there. You see about, it's too cold tonight, but summertime, there are too many of them.
Yeah. Well, certainly, there's a number of other groups that are in existence, but the most focal have been the Crips and Bloods.
You're with Jann Scott here this evening on Addiction Free Radio. We'll be on until 9 o'clock tonight. We are talking about the gang and crack activity here in Denver, and all of it as an addiction. When we come back after this break, we're going to talk more really about dope and how people get sucked up into it, and we're going to talk about solutions too here later on in the program. Now my guests, of course, are Reverend Leon Kelly and Captain Vince Demano of the Gang Task Force. The talk number 761-1550 if you have any questions for any of the gentlemen tonight. 761-1550. We'll be back here on Addiction Free Radio.
Addiction Free Radio. Jan will be back in just a moment. Addiction Free Radio is the only program on the globe that we know of broadcasting information about addiction. Take that important first step for your own well-being and participate in tonight's show. It's absolutely free. Jan will be back with the phone number in just a moment.
Does your child or an adolescent you know have a drug or alcohol problem? Bowling Green of Colorado can help.
Let's say your child has been experimenting with drugs or alcohol. Suppose there's even been some trouble in school or with the law. You're upset, but you're confused too, and maybe a little frightened. What should you do? The first thing you need is information, facts. Not everyone who experiments will become addicted, but experimentation can lead to addiction. In fact, about 1 in every 10 teenagers who tries alcohol or drugs becomes dependent. The important thing to remember is that addiction is a disease. It can be treated, and recovery can be terrific for you and your child.
You don't have to want help to get help. Call Bowling Green of Colorado. 333-5540. 333-5540.
Okay, we are back here on Addiction Free Radio. You're with Jann Scott this evening. We're talking about some of the dealing gang crack activity here in Denver. My guest, the Reverend Leon.
The Reverend Vince.
The Reverend Vince and the Reverend Leon. One thing I want to say about crack, and I happened to mention this on Ken Hamlin's program the other day, and he and I had a big fight about this, and I'm going to come out and say it right now. One thing about crack, you smoke crack one time in a pipe, you want it forever. It's a very strange kind of dope. No, not the first time, Jack, second time, right? I mean, it's faster than heroin, and it takes a lot of people, and it sets up, and what I say is that what we're seeing on the streets in our town is as a result of a kind of dope that takes people. It's sort of like a kid takes the dope and then the dope takes the kid. There is no choice after you smoke crack. There is no choice. It takes you. It owns you.
No.
You can use all the positive thinking you want to around crack or cocaine, but until we start to look at this as part of the addictive process, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's one thing with crack. It is certainly much more addictive than the regular cocaine. The years that I was dealing cocaine out there, cocaine was at one point in time looked as a recreational drug in which only a certain class of people could afford to enjoy that type of feeling. Somebody put in their mind saying that if we were able to market this type of feeling and make it affordable to those people on welfare or fixed income, we can make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So out comes somebody getting together, out comes the thought of this form of crack. Whereas $2.50 you could get a hit.
A wonderful multi-level marketing system.
Yeah,
it's better than Amway.
Well,
How many gang members do we have now this year? Roughly.
What we identify, we have criteria. There's a lot of people that say every time a kid is seen with a black baseball cap on, a red baseball cap, a blue baseball cap, that he's a gang member. If we were to do that, we would be listing almost everybody in the entire metropolitan area.
Yeah.
But we have criteria, and what our criteria states so far is that we're looking at somewhere in the vicinity between 500 to 700 people that we have identified, at least preliminarily, as being gang members.
500 to 700.
Right.
How many were there? When did the gangs move here that you see?
I think the problem probably started stemming up somewhere in the early 80s, about 83, 82.
Yeah, right. About 82, the first sign of gang activity from the Crips and Bloods started to come out this way.
Okay, how many members?
Well, just a few.
10?
But
10, 15?
Well, maybe just maybe about 20, 25. If that, it was just being introduced, and it saw that it wasn't going, and then it really didn't start to surface till about the end of 85. In 85, 86, during that Juneteenth. At that point, it was identified as roughly around 200.
That's when the violence really started.
Okay, 200 around Juneteenth in
86.
Okay,
yeah.
now did these kids, did this whole thing start from L.A. and move here?
As far as the Crips and the Bloods, yeah, that's what.
Is that what you say?
Sure, yeah. Crips and Bloods. There's other gangs like Reverend Leon has referred to.
Yeah. So so this is not just a black problem, although it seems to be showing up in the black community.
Well,
people.
We see Chicanos and blacks are pretty much the fundamental makeup of the Crips and the Bloods.
Chicanos
and blacks.
And blacks. Okay.
I'm
going to ask a very stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What's a Chicano?
Hispanic.
Okay, a Hispanic.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And we're seeing more of them being recruited into the gang.
Really? So the blacks and the Chicanos are being in the same gang together?
Yeah. But then on the other side of it, then when you see groups like the Warlords coming up, and I'm saying I don't know how many people out there is listening to this, and certainly there is no intention of either myself nor Vince and Crusher to glamorize this situation, because to me there's no glamour in it at all.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And but the main thing, I just want to get out the facts of the matter.
Yeah,
and
I think that's important.
Something of interest to me. That our criteria, how we're very strict in before we label somebody as being a gang member. Reverend, what's your opinion? How many gang members do we have?
I talked about close to 700, but actually I think it's more than that.
You do?
More than that. I'd say between about coming 700 to 850.
Well, how do you
500.
determine that? You just pick a
there's
number?
No, there's a profile, and like I said, see, certainly with the sophistication of
you have records on them, and the kids are in the computer?
Sure, that's what we're in the process of doing. We need to have this database so that we can work off of.
How old are the gang members?
We've got some as young as 12.
To how old?
Up into their late 20s, early 30s.
They have leaders?
Well, they want to be identified as leaders.
Yeah.
The ones who have.
Somebody's got to be a leader.
Somebody has influence,
Yeah,
of course, but they don't identify them like here's the president of the gang or anything
No?
like that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, are there leaders?
There has to be. There always has to be a leader of something.
But then, like I said,
Do you have I want to ask, do you have gang meetings? Do you ever watch Hill Street Blues? I know, look, I don't mean to be dopey, but I have to, I have to ask you, Don. Now, come on, do you have meetings with the gangs?
I do.
Reverend does.
What about you?
Our meetings with the gangs are more on a formal basis of what are you doing if you're dirty, you're under arrest type of thing. We don't have a Captain Furillo type of.
That's
that's a lot of Hollywood. Is it there? I think.
Well, they have the Bloods. I mean, Channel 2 has that show on every night, and I would imagine that 12-year-old kids probably watch that and say, yeah, I want to be one of the Bloods or whatever. I mean, that couldn't possibly help to have that. I mean, I'm serious now. You're telling me in 1985 we had 200 gang members. Now we've got 500 to 700 gang members. You say there's more than what he says. And meanwhile, we've got a local television station running a program where they glorify gangs every night. I mean, listen, I have an opinion. I'm judgmental as all get out. And if Channel 2's listening,
monies. There's a lot of monies involved. You look at the.
The movie Colors. Yeah. Okay. Well, I know it's more.
Well, again, but you look at even like the other agencies or corporations that's capitalizing off of this element. There's one guy was giving bandanas, when they were giving out the movies just for the promotion. There's a major shoe company came out with a blue and black shoe.
Okay.
And so the Crips are there.
Here's a solution. Are there some gang movies that the kids watch all the time?
Watch all of them on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, are there some gang movies that are like cult movies with the gangs? Yeah, watch this movie.
God, I don't know of any.
Are there? Does anybody know? Are there any gang movies? 761-1550. I mean, like Jack held up Colors, and I'm wondering.
Well, yeah, Color. What is Color? To me, I continue to say Color had no social redeeming value at all.
No,
as far as I'm concerned. Now, the thing about when I went and I saw Colors. And to me, it just really didn't tell me anything new. But yet, for somebody who's never been exposed to that,
But I wonder if that movie's going to influence a 12-year-old kid to go out and join a gang or get involved in that kind of activity. No?
Well, for example, when I took some fellas to see it, I noticed a number of their behaviors changing. Like they're wearing a hair rag over their heads. Them talking, a couple of slangs that they never heard.
Maybe the video store owners could voluntarily get that movie out of. I mean, if it has an influence. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I stand to be corrected. I'm just trying to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't King Soopers and Safeway
and
a couple other outlets pull it off the shelf? They don't show it. I mean, you can't rent it from them.
Right.
Okay, so there's one thing. If we have video store owners listening, there's one thing you can yank out. I mean, just do it voluntarily.
No, well, you're talking about freedom of speech.
No, I'm not. I'm for that, but I'm not for anything that glorifies gang activity.
It's the same thing. There's people against pornography, knowing that pornography is not going to do community any good, but yet look at the industry. And I think even as far as the colors.
We don't have 600 prostitutes out on Colfax Avenue either. I mean,
we don't.
600.
Well, we got them there. We don't know how many. There's a lot
and
of them.
And they're not shooting each other every night.
Well, still, there's the problem exists even in that. But
I know. Yeah.
But when you look at the colors of it and knowing the seriousness, when the film Color came out, it gave maybe a brief idea how what the mindsets of these kids are and how violent they can become.
Let me go to Vince. Okay, go ahead. What?
That was a good point, Reverend, bringing up the violent end of it. The violence.
Yes.
That's something I think that really stretches people that are not involved with the gangs or have seen the violence. It's just unimaginable how violent they can be, and for the slightest reason. We're not talking about I called your mom a name and you got mad at me. We're talking about I wore a color that you don't like.
That's crack, isn't it? I mean, that's cocaine.
Well,
Is it? Huh? What do you mean?
Well,
No,
it's
that's dope. When you say kids are going to be that way if they're not on dope,
yeah. Most of these kids who are caught up in, they're not using crack. They may be selling it. They're serving. That's the big thing. They're serving. But most dealers who distribute it to their little groups, if any of the people start to use it, they cut them off.
what?
Yeah. I mean, most of these kids.
You're telling me these gangs are clean?
I'm saying they don't use crack now. They may drink and use reefer and everything else.
Oh no! If you're drinking will make it. I mean, drinking's one of the more violent chemicals that we have. I'm making a connection here, and I'm saying where you got kids drinking and kids doing dope, you got violence. I mean, I'm saying that we have an addiction problem here also.
Well, we got to distinguish it different from the effects of crack and effects of reefer. Marijuana. There's a big difference, for some folks.
Sure.
Now, if you strung out on crack,
yeah,
and we grew up together, we were homeboys.
Yeah.
I want to rip you up, because I'm overwhelmed by this type of feeling. So I lay you on the floor, shoot you in the back of the head, just to steal your dope.
Right.
Now, generally people won't do that over like small quantums of marijuana or something, or over beer, this type of thing. But I know that even
people won't shoot each other over beer.
Well, maybe some
every
do,
single murder out there is beer, alcohol.
Wait, come on, Vince. We're
gonna
take him over in the hood.
Jan comes off the street. You don't know who you're talking to. We're gonna take a break. 761-1550. The Reverend and I are going at it. Don't cut the guests off. No, I love them. We'll be back here after this.
Addiction-free radio. Jan will be back in just a moment. Addiction-free radio is the only program on the globe that we know of broadcasting information about addiction. Take that important first step for your own well-being and participate in tonight's show. It's absolutely free. Jan will be back with the phone number in just a moment.
Does someone you know or someone you love have a drug or alcohol problem? Bowling Green of Colorado can help.
Alcoholism affects more than just the person who has the disease. It affects the whole family. There's confusion and anger, misunderstandings and hurt. Often the family has stopped communicating. The closeness that once existed has disappeared. We understand. That's why we provide treatment for everyone close to the alcoholic. Husbands, wives, children, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, everyone joins together for treatment. And the results are wonderful. Families learn to trust again. Soon they're working together, helping each other. There's lots of hugging, even laughter. And it all starts with love.
You don't have to want help to get help. Call Bowling Green of Colorado. 333-5540. 333-5540.
Jack, if he's going to play music in the break. Okay, we're back here on Addiction Free Radio. So talk to me about violence and drinking.
Okay, I got to differ a little bit with the Reverend. It has been our experience that we do, when we do come across gang members, quite a few times we'll come across their paraphernalia for the smoking of crack. I mean, it is not a situation where I don't want to totally disagree with the Reverend, but I've got to disagree. There's a lot of crack used by gang members.
How about drinking?
Sure, there's drinking, there's marijuana use.
Every time you arrest somebody and there's a violent crime, is that person, do you drug test them or alcohol test them?
No. That's not a prime requisite, although a lot of times that becomes a defense,
I would just make a suggestion that you do, because I bet you'll find that in every crime that you have, you're going to find somebody high. They will at least have something in them.
There's been a lot
I'm
of
telling you
talk
guys.
out there, man. That I've seen personally where kids weren't high. They just got off the basketball court. They just been doing some things in which they just go out and see. If somebody from a different hood come over in a particular hood, the kid could just be waking up. And if you see that color, whatever, boom, that'll just spark something. There's violence like that exists. And how many
times? No, wait. How many times when somebody's busted or there's a crime that goes down, are they have they been drinking, or are they high?
Oh, sure. There is a lot of that. You know, I'm not arguing the point that there is a lot of drug and alcohol abuse involved in criminal activity. But when we're talking about these kids, the gang members, per se, we're not talking about each and every one of them doing it when they're high.
The crux of it is alcohol and drugs.
You need to come out with it, Jen. You need to come out to the hood.
I've been out there, and I'll come out with you any day. Look,
Let me you say you've been out there. I'm
on the street.
Well, I'm not talking about in Boulder.
Where do you
know, like
I know.
all that. I'm talking about on the street.
I'm here to tell you that we have an addiction epidemic in this country, and the violence that goes on with the gangs and everybody else is around cocaine and it's around alcohol, and that's the bottom line issue.
I say a lot of it makes it up.
761-1550. What do you think? I'll tell you something else too while we're talking about it. And underneath the dope and the alcohol is the devil himself.
Yeah, you would. Now see,
761-1550.
People fail to realize. Like here's this fella sitting back in the bushes.
Yep.
You know, implementing all these little thoughts upon these little kids and all that, you know, and I continue to tell a lot of folks we're fighting a spiritual battle. But yet, as long as these kids continue to be influenced by the spirit, you know, certainly they're going to feel like all these thoughts that they're coming up with is their own. And a lot of times, you know, sometimes we have the power to rebuke. And there's a lot of people out there listening right now.
Yes.
Some of them are either saved folks and everything else, who have kids who are caught up in this element. But yet they don't want nobody to know about their problem.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people even in the church, and a lot of pastors who saying, "Well, look, Sister so-and-so, you know, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you."
I want to say one thing too. On Monday, we are going to have some people from Bethesda Hospital here who will they work with kids who are adolescents who are involved in cultic addictions and drugs, where they completely go around the bend, and they seem to find out that what's happened to them is they've been taken spiritually, as the Reverend's been saying. I'm talking about satanic cults, and that'll be on Monday night. And I will say no more about that, except that one thing about Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, they always address the drug problem as a spiritual dilemma.
Well, a lot of times when people are on the influence of the drugs, they leave that stuff open.
We'll let the captain jump in and go.
Okay. I'm sure there's a spirit that's moving these people to do things. Okay, but one of the things that that is hard for me to believe is the addiction to the gang philosophy itself, the addiction to that color, the allegiance to that gang, that is much stronger than I feel a drug-induced addiction is for a specific kid to break.
So it's a cultic kind of thing. In other words, they're hooked in the cult of the gang.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah. And then the drugs are just a component.
Sure.
Well, now, man, you can't just say the drugs are... I hate it when people say that drugs are just...
That's why a lot of people cannot understand the philosophy of these kids.
Okay.
Just over a red or blue.
Go ahead.
You know, I mean, I'm telling you, you go over the hood, you go in a certain hood, wearing all red. You just walk through there and see what happens.
No, you go look at the bad kids. Look at the Blacks Against Drugs. Now, there are kids who are in a group. They're bonded together, and they're a social group, and these kids, for the most part, are not sociopathic and antisocial, though some of them may have once been. And I'm telling you, now those kids, most of them are clean, and they're good kids. You take the dope out of a person, and you're going to find a completely different person there.
Okay, so you may find a different person. That's right. But we have a problem when it comes to the gangs. Once you have a gang association, you're put into a revolving door. Okay, a revolving door type of situation. You're involved in criminal activity, jail and prison terms, and attempting to fit back into society. You know, that door starts spinning. You're not going to get out of it until that individual realizes that his gang affiliation is the thing that's causing him the problem.
What do you see, Vince, that we have to do? Let's talk about solutions. If the mayor came up to you, okay, and Mayor Pena came up to you, or the governor came up to you and he said, okay, Demano, I'm going to give you in trust, get the gang problem solved, not a matter of money, what do we need to do? Well, I mean, what do you see that needs to happen, maybe that's not happening now, that you would really like to get going and do?
First of all, I don't think you can end the gang problem. I don't think it's something you can turn on and off. From my perspective as a police officer, What I want to see is the gangs so controlled to the point where their freedom to just do wanton violence is at a real low point. Secondarily, once we do have that gang violence to such a low point, when it does sporadically hit us, I want to be able to know who did it, to investigate it and incarcerate the person who did it as quickly as possible. That's from my perspective, but I can see other avenues.
Are you being stopped from doing that now?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not saying we're being stopped from doing that. The problem is that we have so many details and problems and things that we have to go through in order to achieve that goal. The resources of this city aren't unlimited. As we well know, the city, is not in its highest form of economic wealth. The buck has to be spread just so far before it tears in half.
What can the neighborhoods do to help you out?
The neighborhoods, what can they do?
Yeah, right now.
We need to have community involvement in letting us know what type of gang activity is going on. We need to have people that are willing to, whether they're remain anonymous, to somehow contact us on our gang hotline. We need to have that information passed on to us.
Okay, what's the number for the gang hotline? Let's do that.
329-GANG.
Out in Aurora, 340-GANG.
Okay, so 340-GANG in Aurora and 329-GANG in
Denver.
Denver. Is there a recording? Will somebody's voice be recorded on that, or any way to? How do they know there's not going to be any retribution if they call upon them?
I guarantee there's no retribution on this. And our answering machine will hopefully be in effect or be operational here shortly. But that's the type of stuff we need the community involvement to let us know what's going on.
Are you getting calls?
Oh yeah, we're getting a lot of calls.
You're getting a lot of calls, so the community cooperating.
The biggest fear is that there's going to be retribution coming back to the people that do call. We need to bridge that gap.
Well, how can you guarantee?
How can you guarantee? There's been a lot of press on my move out to Aurora this past week. And I've talked to the mayor of Aurora and the chief of police and all, and everybody's behind the move out there. And when we talk about someone or an agency to bridge that gap between the community and the police, the guys and the police and all, and with even like a number of the fellas are calling in to Open Door Youth Ministries out there, using us as a conduit to the community. And there's a lot of people who would rather call a place like Open Door in opposed to calling the police, because I won't go into that. But then there are a lot of parents, and over the last couple of days I received probably about 150 calls. Parents and kids and others calling in because they're having problems. They're faced with this type of influence, and there's kids who are caught up in the gangs and trying to act in some kind of way. To be able to refer those kids, to a maybe existing agencies, and then on the other side to let it be a normal thing for a kid to walk into a center and see a captain, getting in there, interacting with the kids, allowing them to be able to breathe that gap to see a different side of it.
What are people saying when they call? What do they say? I mean, they say, I think my kid's in a gang, and I don't know what's the mother to do, or
One of the things that I've been trying to do is to educate parents in the community to the telltale signs and characteristics of gang involvement, of the profile that goes along with their kid, whether it's the way he wears clothes, or his behavior, or this type of thing.
What can a street do? Let's say there got to be some streets where the gang activity is happening mostly, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what can the people on the street do, or what can a series of streets do?
Do you mean to get rid of the gang problem, or?
Yeah, to prevention, or to take a stand. Not
here. That goes back to the, for example, the Macon Moline partnership. Mm-hmm. Has incorporated with the city of Aurora and the Open Door Youth Gang Ministries to come to deal with it as a combined effort, of a community coming together. And that's what, like Vince said, it's just not a police problem; it's all of our problems.
Yeah.
See, now the
so it's thumped on your lap. I mean, I know that.
Well, anybody who anytime anything happens, one of the first people who get blamed for it is the mayor or the police. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes the police go in and they try to deal with something because of a call or informant or whatever.
Okay. What I want to know is, what can a street do tonight? If you're in a neighborhood and there's activity. I mean, what the heck?
Well, the most visible thing that you can do is to keep the police informed. I mean, that's the first step. Reverend hit it right on the head that when there is this type of activity going on, somebody needs to know. we are charged with the responsibility of making the city safe for the citizens.
Do these kids own some of the streets? I mean, is it just pretty well common knowledge? Is everybody a little embarrassed
I
to
won't.
say?
I won't give up any streets and say that they own it.
Do they say they own them?
They like to think they do.
Yeah, they have a tendency to claim it church.
Okay, how do you reclaim? That's what I want to know. How do you reclaim the turf? How does a neighborhood? I mean, I presume some of the neighborhoods are terrified at this point, no?
Well, yeah. Well, again, I keep referring back to Nathan Moline, areas, knowing that that's been very visible, as far as the aggression and the violence over the last couple of years. But there are cities, streets right here in Denver that the same type of fear exists. And but yet again, it's going to have to take a effort instead of somebody just looking out the window and calling Vince and say, Vince, they're out there, go get them.
Yeah.
But yet it's going to have to take a combination of people, in that block or in that neighborhood to be able to come together. Because see, if one person just keeps going out there saying, hey, he did it,
how do they come together? What would be?
Okay, one of the ideas that I think would probably work, and it is being worked on right now, the mayor has a program through the police department where various members of the clergy, men of the cloth, have volunteered to intervene in gang problems. And what they're going to be doing now is they're formulating a list right now. So if there's a clergyman out there that wants to be involved in this, he can become involved. They will be riding with the police officers. They will be able to intervene, to step in on some of these problems that exist. That's one area, the church. Now we have to look at a social area too. I think there's service clubs. I think there's businesses out there. What we'd like to see is businessmen that are willing and able, and some have come forth to the gang task force and have volunteered to us that you come up with some kids that are not hardcore gangbangers at this point, but that are on the fringe of it. We'd like to give them a job. We'd like to see them working. Once again, we've got to bridge the gap. You're going to work for $4 or $5 an hour when you can make a couple $100 selling
Now is that true? First of all, out of the 700 kids that are out there in the gang, how many of them are making, how much money are they making average? I mean, to the best of your ability.
How much is a Ford Mustang 5.0 convertible? I can't afford one.
A 12-year-old driving Ford Mustang convertible? I mean,
No,
700 kids.
We're talking.
What's the average income for the kids? I mean, I just want to know. I would like to. I've heard numbers thrown around, and I'd kind of like to know what your opinion is.
I think it's sufficient enough to keep dressed in rather nice athletic clothing
All the time?
the majority of the time. When you put on the colors, those colors stay on you.
All the kids?
Majority of them.
Do you give any of the money to their mom and dad?
There are some parents who are reaping the benefits of it, even though they don't condone it. But then if the kids, they would throw out $50 or $100, a couple $100 a mom who may be on welfare on a fixed income. She was saying, well, I don't know what he does. He may look like he's using that money. But to see the money that some of these kids are making, the kid 16 years old, he says, yeah, bro, I make $600 a day. I get my supply for it.
If the gangs, okay, well, we determined that. So it's kind of multi-level marketing. Is that, would I be correct in saying if, in other words, if I have a crack habit and I got to make X amount of dollars and I got to have so many clients to sell to, so therefore we start expanding out, and if you do a good job and buying from me, you can then join our gang. Is that how they recruit also? You know what I mean? Like, you get them hooked.
I don't think it's like the Amway pyramid type of thing. Okay.
You don't?
No. I honestly feel. Am I using too many product names?
No, we can use any. I mean, I say anything on this show.
Okay.
Close
I don't think it's a pyramid type of scheme where you do so much and then you get to move into the organization. I think if you belong to the organization and you're a trusted member of a gang, and if that's the way the gang maintains it.
Listen, if I'm hooked on crack, I'm 12 years old. You sold me crack 3 weeks ago. Now I got to have it, and I can't get any dough. The best way for me to do is to find 3 or 4 other people to sell dope to, so I can take care of my own habit.
You go breaking your house. You breaking somebody's house.
Well, yeah, but no, the lower end guys are breaking into the houses. If I want to be a dealer, I'm sick of breaking into houses, man. I see the easy money, I want it.
Well, a lot of times, let me tell you, from being a previous dealer myself, if I was
that's
front,
2 of us.
Okay, if I was,
okay.
Well, if I was to front you,
no, that's
no,
not me.
No. You're dealing with the strong arm of the law. We know.
Yeah, I'm bad. You feel I'm gonna see you before tomorrow. Captain. This is the thing. Like, if I front you a half ounce of dope, or whatever, And then you start to sell and bring my money back, and then you start using it and using up the profit. Me as a supplier to you is going to cut you off.
Right.
See? So therefore, quite naturally, a lot of kids are not.
But I'm not going to use it if I know that you're going to kill me. I mean, what are these shootings out here about? Tell me these shootings aren't about rip-offs.
No, like what? Some of them are.
They're about church?
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Some are gang allegiance. Some are get even for something that you did earlier in the day, earlier in the week.
Yeah. Payback.
Get even.
We need to take a break, Randy? 761-1550 is the talk number here on Addiction Free Radio. My guests, Reverend Leon Kelly and Captain Vince Demano from the Gang Task Force. Now, Reverend Leon Kelly is not from the Gang Task Force. You are from...
Director of Open Door Youth Gang Ministries.
Open Door Youth Gang Ministries. Okay, you're with Jann Scott here on Addiction Free Radio. We are live tonight in the Mile High City on KQXI Radio. 761-1550. We have attractive operators standing by to take your calls. Not so attractive. We'll be back after this break.
Addiction Free Radio. Jann will be back in just a moment. Addiction Free Radio is the only program on the globe that we know of broadcasting information about addiction. Take that important first step for your own well-being and participate in tonight's show. It's absolutely free. Jann will be back with the phone number in just a moment.
Does your child or an adolescent you know have a drug or alcohol problem? Bowling Green of Colorado can help.
Let's say your child has been experimenting with drugs or alcohol. Suppose there's even been some trouble in school or with the law. You're upset, but you're confused too, and maybe a little frightened. What should you do? The first thing you need is information, facts. Not everyone who experiments will become addicted, but experimentation can lead to addiction. In fact, about 1 in every 10 teenagers who tries alcohol or drugs becomes dependent. The important thing to remember is that addiction is a disease. It can be treated, and recovery can be terrific for you and your child.
You don't have to want help to get help. Call Bowling Green of Colorado. 333-5540. 333-5540.
Okay, we are back here on Addiction Free Radio. So what were you just saying before we, during the break, you were talking about the new plan or something you wanted to just be real clear on, or?
Well, there are proposals before the mayor concerning how we're going to deal with the gang problem, and it's basically assigned to one of the mayor's people, and it's Michael Simmons who's heading up the entire city diversion or gang effort, and there's been some stuff released about it, and basically the mayor has to make the decision, and he's going to make the decision the best way he can. So.
Okay, that pretty much clears that. 761-1550, the talk number here on Addiction Free Radio. If you have any questions for either the Reverend Kelly or Captain Demano, we have 10 minutes left on the program tonight.
You know, there are people, again, who want to come forth, but yet they're afraid for one reason or another. And if they know that there are some agencies in existence that they can go to, whether for prayers, for counseling, or whatever, I feel like they'd be more reluctant to just come forth and do that. But I think, again, dealing with this problem, even if you're a parent is going to have to realize the fact that if they got kids between certain age and age group, the kids could be very susceptible, to this type of influence. And if the parents, like what they are saying, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. People are being destroyed here, even in our city, just from lack of knowledge.
761-1550 is the talk number here on Addiction Free Radio. Well, we've got some calls coming in now. What do we got, guys?
Hello.
Hi, who do we have there?
I'm a caller, and I'd like to address the captain or the detective.
Sure, go ahead.
You all have a gang task force,
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I've noticed that a lot of the children or the kids, the young people in certain areas, the black youth in certain areas are being harassed by some of the police, not necessarily sporting colors and that, but they're being asked to fall down on their faces, to spread eagle, and searched and asked for certain identifications, and then they can go a few blocks down, and then the procedure starts over again.
Okay, good call. We'll get an answer on that.
Okay, without having a specific occurrence when it did happen, I can't really address it and say that it's, what the lady is talking about.
I've seen some pictures like that in the news media. I think the Rocky Mountain News might have mentioned that, and I've seen that in one of the stories there. So I've kind of heard that. I haven't, and I think that's what she's addressing.
Well, I think one of the things that we've got to guard against is the mere fact that, like I said earlier in the program, we can't just say you're a gang member because you're wearing a blue coat.
Yeah,
you're a gang member because you're wearing a red.
One of the papers reported that. They showed a
You still
picture.
got to understand, in any profession, you're going to have the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it goes back to the proper training. The proper training. A lot of the rookies coming in right now, I don't know if it's one of the qualifications or the part of the curriculum in the police training, now is that they go through a course of training for gang defense and prevention, this type of thing. But I know that there are some good and bad in any type of profession, and in reality, there are some police who are out there who are just as paranoid and a little afraid or apprehensive about the situation. Because if you got a kid who is carrying a 357 or Uzi or something like that, and some of these kids are more equipped than the police.
Well, see, one of the things like you're talking about, the training, just as a matter of fact, we are beginning a new program on the police department where we will have officers from all 4 districts that will be coming out and working one period, what we call a period, basically a month, with the gang task force officers, so that they become more aware of the gang graffiti, the gang activity, psychology, the whole works. So when they go back to their respective districts throughout the city, they'll be able to identify this.
Isn't it? To me, it would make sense if you have a situation, if there's something that's gone down, and you have a hot situation, and whoever's in that particular vicinity, I would think you need to contain the situation and determine what the heck's going on. You have your life.
But
to protect.
that's if something's going on. But see, when you start putting pressure on everybody who fits the profile, and say get out on the ground, spread it, the whole thing, it's going to cause some type of repercussions.
761-1550 is the talk number. 761-1550. We got 6 minutes left.
That is one even a component of whether it be open door or any other type of program where if a parent or a citizen feels that there is being excessive force being applied, to be able to call and say, okay, Reverend Kelly, look, this one. Then I say, hey, Vince, did you hear about this? So we have to have a chain of communication.
Let me ask you this, from your point of view, what kind of job are the cops doing out there?
Some of my best friends are cops.
And that's not what I asked you. Are they doing a good job? They got.
Well, to me, hey, I applaud the police presence. I applaud the gang task unit. I wish that it would have been implemented before now, but then everybody want to cry about money.
We only got a couple of minutes left here. I want to ask Captain Demano this. Is it dangerous out there? And is it scary?
Well, sure. It's I wouldn't say it's scary to the point because that's what we're there for.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it is dangerous. A lot of violent people out there, not just gang members, but there's violence. But the gang people are very violent. And by the way, some of my best friends are ministers too.
Well, gentlemen, we're just about out of time. Do you have any closing statements that either one of you would like to make, just to the community?
I'll make
large?
one real quick one.
Yes.
I think we need to get everybody involved in this gang problem. I think it involves the schools, the churches, the business community, the social community, everything. The police are the most visible form of control of the gangs, but they need to be involved too.
What can they do to get involved, in a nutshell?
They need to take up action. They need to become involved with their community meetings. They need to assist people like Reverend Kelly and some of his programs that he has going on. We need people to be knowledgeable instead of sitting back in the vacuum and saying, God, it's happening again.
Okay, so before we go, let's give out the number again for we're going to give it out for the gang task force in Denver, and then for the one in Aurora. If you have any information on gang activity, or can the people call and just get general information about what they can do to cooperate with the police too?
Sure, they can.
Okay, let's give those numbers.
Okay, in Denver it's 329-GANG, and in Aurora it's
340.
340-GANG.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Jan.
Captain, for being here. And Reverend Kelly, so any closing statements from you?
Just I sort of enjoy, first thing I want to say, the dialogue going back and forth. And I would continue to encourage those listeners who are out there who really wanted to call in but felt stop in the spirit or whatever, that if they have a problem, I encourage them to call and be obedient to the Spirit, because I know that the Lord has ministered to a lot of these parents, about the telltale signs to their sons. But if we continue to want to be blinded to this problem, we're going to find ourselves being overtaken.
Now, can you give the number for your street ministry too, and so people can know if they want to contact you and maybe support you in some way? I'm sure that do you need contributions? You must.
Sure. Certainly, we are always within any program. You're always going to need financial help. So they could give with me a 340-GANG. 340-GANG. 340-GANG,
so they can contact you there. Okay, if you would like to help out maybe in any of the community meetings, certainly Captain Demano or the Reverend Leon Kelly will help you if you would like to become involved in helping to solve the gang crack problem here in Denver.
And I want people to know that even though I'm out of the road, I work very close with Vince and Denver. Because it's just not a Aurora problem, just like it's not a Denver problem.
You got it. If the three of us can sit in here and go at it the way we went tonight, see, this is what we need to be doing a lot, and we're smiling. And
Vince, I thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come together to talk about it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're real welcome. This is what we're here for in Addiction Free Radio. Okay, Monday, satanic cults. Tuesday, I hate to even bring it up, but we're gonna have a leader of one of the skinhead gangs from Tennessee on. These people are white supremacist racists. They have a very perverted way, but we can have fun with them. You can call in and take them apart. Okay, and Wednesday I have no idea who we have. You've been with Jann Scott here on Addiction Free Radio. Tomorrow night is a rebroadcast, probably of this program, so you want to tell your pals to tune into 1550 KQXI. You can listen to the show again on Sunday night. Until tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, this is Jann Scott saying good night and God bless you.